titled False Dilemma. False Dilemma, Robert Karanja, False Dilemma.
Human beings are unrational. Madam Grammarian, before you make note of poor use of grammar, let me explain why I use that word instead of irrational. As human beings, we are capable of making rational choices. However, to be able to deal with situations where we either have too much information or too little, we develop mental shortcuts. These shortcuts can sometimes lead to mistakes in our thinking. The mistakes are called fallacies. There are over 90 different types of fallacies that have been documented. This evening, I'm going to talk to you about one of them, the false dilemma. A false dilemma is when you're presented with two choices and forced to pick either one of them, when in reality, there are many other choices apart from those two that you can pick from. To illustrate how a false dilemma presents itself in our life and the impact that it can have, I'm going to tell you a story from the Swahili people in the coast. In the early 1900s, there was a married couple that lived on the Mombasa island of Lamu in a village called Matondoni. For those of us who are married or who have been in long-term relationships, you know that there are periods where a couple goes through where they are antagonistic towards each other. Every conversation they have during that period is like they are having it in the isosceles stance, ready to shoot each other down with their words. This particular couple was going through such a period. One day, they were seated in their house having lunch. The delicious aroma of the cassava boiled in coconut milk and the charcoal roasted fish attracted a cat that lived in their compound. The cat strutted into their house and then stood there looking at them. Stood there looking at them in that way that cats look at you when they're trying to guilt trip you into giving them food. The woman took a moment to look at the cat and then turned to her husband and said, "My husband, I think the cat's tail is stuck into the body of the cat." The reason she said this was because while the cat was standing there still, the tail moved like it had a mind of its own. The husband looked at the cat for a moment and then turned to his wife and said, "No, my wife, I believe that the cat's tail sprouts out of its body." The reason he said this was because when the cat moved, the tail was in perfect synchrony with the rest of its body. This small exchange was like a spark that ignited their powder keg of a marriage. They started arguing and kept arguing for days. So noisy and disruptive were the arguments that the neighbors were attracted to them and told them, "Look, either you settle your arguments or you move out of our village." During that time, there lived a wise man in a village called Shela. Shela is 10 kilometers from Matondoni in the southern part of the Lamu Island. That wise man would charge $1 to give an answer to anybody who came to him. $1 was a significant amount of money at that time. So the couple resolved to go and see this wise man. When they got to the wise man, the man spoke first. He said, "Oh, wise man, please look through your books and tell us whether a cat's tail sprouts out of its body." Immediately, the wife interjected and said, "No, wise man, please look through your books and tell us if a cat's tail is stuck in to the body of the cat." The wise man sat there and saw two fools in front of him who were ready to be parted from their money. He said, "I'll charge you $1 to answer each of those questions." And the man and his wife each gave him $1, hoping that the answer would be in their favor. The wise man made a pretense of looking through all his red books. And then when he was done, he turned to them and said, "You're both wrong. The cat's tail is neither stuck into the cat, neither does it sprout out. The tail is simply stuck on to the cat." After hearing this, the couple stood up and left the wise man, and then made the 10-kilometer walk back home in the scorching sun. In their quiet thoughts, they came to realize that indeed they had been fools. They had spent their time and their money in a pointless endeavor. It was all a matter of semantics. Toastmasters and guests, that couple parted with their hard-earned cash and then endured the hot coast sun for 20 kilometers to answer a meaningless question. Whether the tail is stuck in or sprouts out or is stuck on does not matter. It is all saying the same thing in different ways. And it is the same with the best of us. Whenever we are emotionally invested in anything, we can easily fall prey to the false dilemma. Whether it is in our relationships, whether it is in politics when we are given two choices between two people, or whether it is in our professional interactions. Therefore, the next time you find yourself in an argument, take time and ask yourself whether that is a false dilemma. Do not waste your time and your resources in fighting a war that doesn't need to be fought. Do not create unnecessary enmity by creating a false dilemma for yourself and for others. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.